This is Ask a Couples Counsellor, a show that answers all the relationship questions you're too afraid to ask. On the show, we'll take your questions and give you the tools you need to build trust and intimacy with your partner. I'm your host, Neha Kapoor. I'm a registered clinical counsellor and psychotherapist, and I'm really passionate about helping couples navigate the challenges that we all go through. Because after all, every relationship encounters some stormy weather now and then. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Ask a Couples Counsellor, where we'll be diving deep into some sensitive and thought-provoking topics about intimacy, relationships, and emotional boundaries. We've received questions from listeners across Australia, and we'll be addressing three big ones today. We're diving into the complexities of intimacy after a breakup, the significance or insignificance of a partner's sexual history, and whether it's possible to keep casual relationships purely physical. We'll explore the emotional readiness required for intimacy after heartbreak, the role of personal values and communication in relationships, and how biology influences emotional attachment in casual sex. These topics touch on deeply personal experiences, so we'll examine them from both a scientific standpoint and through the lens of couples therapy. Whether you're navigating new relationships or reflecting on past experiences, this episode will offer valuable insights on emotional boundaries, communication, and maintaining healthy connections. All right, let's get into it. Our first question today comes from Amy in Sydney. Let's have a listen to Amy's question.
How soon is too soon to have sex after a major breakup?
That's a question worth exploring, Amy, because the timing of intimacy after a major breakup is highly personal. There is no universal answer for how soon is too soon to have sex. It depends on the emotional and mental readiness that you feel. So I would say it's important to check in with yourself and ensure that you're emotionally ready for intimacy. If you're still processing grief, loss, or emotional baggage from the breakup, rushing into sex might not be healthy for you. Also, I would say consider why you want to engage in sex. Are you trying to distract yourself from the pain, seeking validation, or genuinely interested in connecting with someone new? So it's vital to ensure that the motivation is positive and not based on unresolved feelings or a desire to fill a void. A breakup often comes with emotional wounds that need time to heal. So prioritizing your emotional well-being, allowing yourself time to heal, and practicing self-care can make a significant difference in how you navigate intimacy and a breakup. So before engaging in sex, be clear about what you're looking for and whether you're seeking casual encounters or a more meaningful connection, and understanding your own boundaries and communicating them with potential partners is very crucial. So I would say that there's no set timeline, and it's okay to take as much time as needed to feel comfortable and ready. I hope that answers your question, Amy. All right, let's get into our second question for today, which comes from Gary in Port Macquarie. Let's have a listen to Gary's question.
I have a question about body counts. I see a lot of people talking about body count. They're like, how many people have you hooked up with? Is it too high? Is it too low? Does it really matter what your body count is? And is it also anyone's business what your body count is?
This is an interesting question, Gary, because different people and relationships will have varying perspectives on this question. So in my opinion, context and values matter. So for some people, the number of sexual partners a person has or has had, so i.e. their body count, may matter because of personal, cultural, or religious beliefs. But for others, it's not a significant factor in determining compatibility or the health of a relationship. So ultimately, what matters is that both partners share similar values around intimacy and are open and honest with each other about their experiences. And in any relationship, I believe trust and communication are key. So, if a partner's sexual history is something one person feels is important to discuss, it's worth having an open, respectful conversation about it. So, from what I have seen in a therapeutic space, what's more important than the number itself is how the couple navigates conversations about boundaries, past experiences, and expectations going forward. So, for some, knowing a partner's past can create insecurities or lead to unnecessary comparisons. So, it's important to reflect on whether knowing this information will help or hinder the relationship. So, being mindful of how such discussions impact both partners emotionally is quite crucial. And at the same time, a person's sexual history is their private information, and they're not obligated to share it unless they choose to. So both partners should feel respected in their decision to either discuss or not discuss their past. If it's asked out of curiosity or insecurity, it might be worth considering whether it's truly relevant to the current relationship. And ultimately, whether body count matters depends on the couple's values, communication, and ability to navigate the topic in a way that fosters trust and understanding. So it's more about the quality of the connection than past numbers. I hope that answers your question, Gary. Our last question for today comes from Jason in Perth. Let's have a listen to Jason's question.
I was just wondering, is it possible to have ongoing, casual sex with someone without developing those feelings?
Jason, look, this is a complex question because it touches on both emotional and biological aspects of human relationships. It's not just about behavior, but about how our bodies and minds react to intimacy over time. So there's a psychological and a physiological dimension to consider when we're discussing casual sex and emotional attachment. Let's talk about the scientific perspective first. So, scientifically, sexual activity triggers the release of hormones and neurotransmitters that influence emotional bonding and attachment. So, as many of us know, oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, it's released during sexual activity, particularly during orgasms, and it plays a key role in emotional closeness and attachment. So, while it's more commonly associated with women, both sexes release oxytocin, which can increase feelings of affection and connection. And then we have a neurotransmitter called dopamine, which is linked to the pleasure and reward system in your brain. And this can create a sense of euphoria or excitement, leading to positive associations with the sexual partner. So, from an evolutionary standpoint, humans are wired to form bonds with sexual partners to increase the likelihood of pair bonding and offspring survival. So, while this isn't universal, some people may naturally develop emotional attachments over time due to repeated sexual contact. However, it's important to note that not everyone will experience these emotional responses to the same degree because personal experiences, cultural beliefs, and emotional detachment strategies, they can influence how individuals respond to casual sex. Now, from a psychological perspective, I believe people with secure attachment styles may be more likely to handle casual relationships without developing deep emotional connections, while those with anxious or avoidant attachment styles may either become overly attached or struggle with detachment. So, recognizing your own attachment patterns can help you understand how you might react to casual sex encounters. Now, for those of our listeners who don't know anything about attachment styles refers to the way people form emotional bonds and respond to intimacy in relationships. Now, there are four main types. Firstly, secure, where individuals feel comfortable with closeness and trust. The second one is anxious, where people often fear abandonment and seek constant reassurance. The third one is avoidant, where individuals may distance themselves emotionally to avoid vulnerability. And fourth is disorganized, where there is a mix of anxiety and avoidance, often due to past trauma. Now, these attachment styles are shaped in childhood but they can evolve over time and impact how we relate to partners in adulthood. So, if you want to find out about your attachment style, you can take an online quiz or an assessment on websites like the Attachment Project or Psychology Today, which offers tools to help you identify your attachment style based on your relationship patterns. Or you could consult with a therapist that can also provide deeper insight into your attachment style and how it affects your relationships. Now, coming back to casual sex, if both parties enter into a casual relationship with clear intentions and boundaries, it may be easier to keep emotional feelings in check. However, I would say that casual relationships often blur lines, especially when they become ongoing, making it difficult for one or both partners to avoid emotional attachment over time. So I would say that casual sex might fulfill physical needs, but people often have emotional needs as well. And over time, one or both partners might begin to seek more than just a physical connection, leading to potential complications. So, if there's a mismatch in the emotional desires, it can create tension. So, from a scientific perspective, the release of bonding hormones and the potential for emotional attachment makes it possible but potentially difficult to engage in long term casual sex without developing feelings. But from my point of view, as a couples therapist, it's important to explore personal boundaries, attachment styles, and clear communication between partners to avoid emotional complications. So it's possible for some people to maintain purely physical relationships. It's also natural for feelings to develop over time, something both parties should be mindful of if they want to keep things casual. All right, that's it for today. And before I go, if you have any burning questions you want answered, send them to novoempowercounselling@gmail.com. Let's navigate this journey together because better relationships start with understanding. I can't wait to hear from you. You've been listening to Ask a Couples Counsellor, a show that answers all the relationship questions you're too afraid to ask. This show is produced by Novo Empower Counselling. We provide a range of services, including couples counselling, individual counselling, and online counselling. To find out more, visit our website novoempowercounselling.com.au. This show was produced with strategy and production support from Wavelength Creative. To make sure you don't miss an episode of Ask a Couples Counsellor, be sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, I'd love it if you could leave me a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm your host, Neha Kapoor, and I'll see you in the next episode.